I'm just trying to get by, being quiet and shy, and the whole world through push and shove. And the wino and I know the joy of the ocean, like the boy knows the joy of his milkshake in motion. Strange situation, wild occupation. I'm living my life like a song.
From high atop the penthouse of Black Mount Vernon, where you turn the faucet handle and don't nothing come out but fine ass, hot and cold running white women's. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. American and all them ships at sea. Welcome to the first anniversary edition of the Blast Radius. I'm your special guest correspondent, Black George Washington. Here come your decline of Western civilization news roundup in just a moment. First, I'm going to tell you the story how I done came to be here today. See, last week, I just be sitting around the penthouse doing what Black George Washington do, lounging on my big old bearskin rug, sipping some Courvoisier, got fine-ass naked white bitches feeding me grapes and shit, and I gets a phone call from my good friend Captain Curmudgeon, and he says to me, he says, Black George Washington, next week is the first anniversary of the Blast Radius, and I got to come up with something special for that occasion. So I was thinking the peoples might like it if you stepped in and done the news roundup. And I says to him, I says, Captain Curmudgeon, my brother, out of all the white bread, milk, toast, crack-ass, peckerwood motherfuckers in the whole wide world, ain't none of them I'd rather do a special favor for than you. So you bet your sweet ass I'm in the car, baby. Now let's do this shit. Dateline, Washington, Monday, 2nd of September. Cracker-ass Peckerwood House Speaker Mike Johnson say he gonna think about shutting down the federal government if the House don't approve a bill that requires all the states to demand proof of citizenship from any motherfucker that wants to vote in this year's election. But wait, Black George Washington, I hear you say, ain't you already got to be a citizen to vote in any U.S. election? Well, yes. So why the fuck do we need a bill like that? Well, that's a goddamn good question. And you know what else is a goddamn good question? Why would one party be so adamantly opposed to a bill that only stipulates a thing that the Constitution already requires? Is there any innocent, non-corrupt explanation for that? Nah, that sure as fuck ain't. Not from where Black George Washington be sitting. You remember that one time that Shakespeare motherfucker wrote that line about people's protesting too much? It look a whole hell of a lot like these peoples be protesting too much. It's almost like one party think they can't win without no vote fraud. Speaker Johnson say he gonna staple this proof of citizenship bill on the ass end of the bill they got to pass to keep the government running. So this looked like a win-win from where Black George Washington be sitting. Either the proof of citizenship gets passed or the government gets shut down. It's like choosing between a big titty white blonde and a big titty white brunette. Ain't no way a brother can go wrong. Dateline, New York City, Tuesday, 3rd of September. Well, it's back to school season again, folks, which means them cosplay caviar motherfuckers is back, taking over college campuses, waving they Palestine flags, chanting they dumbass slogans, spray painting statues and all that shit. Students who showed up for the first day of classes at Columbia University this week, they done got greeted by a big old mob of these Hamas-loving motherfuckers saying they got to boycott classes and all this kind of shit. The Associated Press done reported, quote, someone splattered red paint Tuesday on a statue in front of the Lowe Memorial Library. Outside the gates of the university, a small group of protesters marched down a picket line and urged arriving students and faculty to join them rather than going to class. As long as Columbia continues to invest and to benefit from Israeli apartheid, the students will continue to resist. Now, this was said by Mahmoud Khalil, a graduate student who represented campus protesters in negotiations with the university. And he said that shit to the Associated Press last week ahead of the start of classes. Not only protests and encampments, he said, the sky is the limit. Now, Mahmoud, may I call you Mahmoud? Well, I don't give a fuck if I can call you that, so listen your ass up anyway. What the fuck you talking about negotiations? Negotiate what, motherfucker? These kids, they just want to go to class and get their proper woke indoctrination that their parents done second mortgage their houses for. So how's about you stand your bitch ass out the way and mind your own goddamn business? And if you don't understand the words that's coming out of Black George Washington's mouth right now, I'm gonna be happy to learn that shit in Arabic, bitch. Dateline, Washington, Monday the 4th of September. White House Press Secretary Baghdad Buckwheat said she didn't have no comment when some cracker-ass Peckerwood reporter done asked her for a critique of Kamala Harris's fake black accent. And it's just like my daddy used to say, Black George Washington Sr., what he done told me when I done chopped down that cherry tree. Son, he said, if there's a thing you'd rather not talk about, just pretend it don't exist. So even though I see you standing here in front of a busted-ass cherry tree holding a goddamn axe in your hand, if you look me right in my eye and you say, nah, daddy, there ain't no axe and there ain't no damn cherry tree, I'll believe you, son. So that's the exact same thing with Kamala's fake black accent. You never heard no fake black accent because it don't exist, just like that damn cherry tree I never done chopped down. So, if it sounds like Kamala trying to talk black to black audiences, and then she trying to talk white to white audiences when they all a bunch of crack-ass Peckerwood motherfuckers, well, you just got to stop imagining that shit is all. You know, some peoples be saying Kamala Harris, she tried way too hard to come off black. Like when she done that, told that lady how she make her collard greens. Some people's be saying, why in the fuck would a half Jamaican, half Punjabi who was born in Berkeley and raised in French goddamn Canada give a fuck about some deep South soul food recipes? Well, I don't fucking know. All I know is if she cleans the collard greens in the bathtub, I'd sure as fuck hate to see where she cleans the chitlins. Dateline Ottawa, Thursday the 5th of September. Since we on the subject of cultural appropriating motherfuckers who done grew up in Canada, hey, crack-ass Peckerwood Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Well, he might be in a whole heap of trouble, see, because his coalition partners done bailed out on his ass this week. Now, has it got anything to do with that big old standing ovation he gave to that Nazi SS motherfucker in the House of Commons a few months back? I don't know. Has it got anything to do with his habit of wearing so much blackface even Al Jolson would be offended? I don't know. Has it got anything to do with the way he treats every country he visits like his own personal costume shop? I don't know. But he done lost the New Democrat Party. They done pulled out of their ruling coalition and they sound pissed, y'all. This here's a quote from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. That don't sound very much like a Canadian name, but what the fuck does Black George Washington know anyway? Quote, today, I have notified the Prime Minister that I done ripped up the supply and confidence agreement. Big corporations and wealthy CEOs have had their government. It's the people's time, end quote. In other words, Trudeau, the wokest motherfucker in the whole Western Hemisphere, he just ain't woke enough for them NDP motherfuckers who went on to call the Prime Minister too weak and too selfish to continue in office. So it sounds like America's top hat might be having themselves an election sooner than later, so stay tuned to the blast radius for any new developments out of Canuckistan. Dateline, New York City, Friday the 6th of September. Former President Donald Trump done told the Economic Club in New York this week that he wants to bring back the American dream and make it easier for young folks to afford buying their first home. Quote, we will make housing much more affordable and we will get mortgage rates back down to 3% so young people will be able to buy a home again and be part of the American dream. Millions of people will take part in reviving the American dream. It's about the American dream. It's all about the American dream. We don't talk about the American dream with these Democrat people in office. They don't want to talk about the American dream because they want the exact opposite. And he ain't lying neither. Them globalist motherfuckers, they've been saying the quiet part out loud for quite a while now. About how in the future, you ain't gonna own nothing and you gonna be happier. You gonna live in a dirt floor hovel, you gonna eat bugs and grass for your supper, you gonna ride around on a goddamn bicycle like some Chinese motherfucker, and you gonna love that shit. And don't you be complaining about nothing on no social media neither, or the speech police, they gonna come and round your ass up for some re-education, you hear? And you know what else Trump said? He said, we also can't ignore the impact of the flood 21 million illegal aliens has had in driving up housing costs. That's why my plan will ban federally backed mortgages for illegal aliens. Now, why the fuck would any goddamn illegal alien be eligible for a mortgage in the first place? I don't fucking know. Y'all gonna have to ask the California Assembly about that one, if they ain't too busy writing up some goddamn slavery reparation bill. Now, I hate to disappoint y'all. That's the end of this here roundup. Congratulations to you blast radius motherfuckers on your first year in business. Have yourselves a fine-ass anniversary show. And y'all be sure and tune in Tuesday night for the live stream of the debate. I got to bounce peoples. I got lots of impatient, big-titty white women in the next room that won't take no for an answer. Y'all know how it be. So much love until next we meet. I'm Black George Washington, America's baby daddy. See you next time. Peace out, bitches.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Tactical nuke incoming!
I have no idea how to follow that up. That was absolutely freaking amazing, man. Did you just reach into your soul and snatch some other dude out just for doing that? Welcome to the Blast Radius, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to apparently be our 1-year anniversary. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate every single one of y'all, even Black George Washington, which
he's the MVP around here.
Apparently, he is absolutely the MVP around here.
God, I worked up a lather on that one. Oh.
You take you a minute, catch you a breather, drink you a beer, brother. You have earned it tonight.
Thank you very much indeed, sir.
That was amazing. All right, so we got a little bit of news happening here in the upcoming week. I want to plug right out the door, and then I want to go through chat. So there's going to be multiple tumultuous streams for the debate Tuesday. Captain Curmudge is going to do one of his style. I have no idea what that's going to look like because he hasn't told me nothing about it, and he's going to keep it a secret because that's the way we roll, apparently. I'm not offended. We're gonna I'm doing something with Juicy J that day, and AJOT, and maybe Flow State if he's got time and is interested. He doesn't generally do politics, but I'm trying to get him outside of his little comfortable corner, you know. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Out of your comfortable corner, you know. Comfortable corner, you know. You good, bud? You got a grip on it?
I came like probably 2 minutes away from blowing my throat out.
Oh yeah, no, I could feel it happening. I could feel it happening. I had the same problem when I do Alex Jones. You know, because it's a little bit too traveling for me to really roll out for a long period. I can do short bits.
That is the longest I have ever attempted to do Black George Washington. I think I've never gone past 5 minutes before.
I kind of want you to like get hinky with some AI so that you can just speak normally and it do Black George Washington for you. I don't feel like it would be difficult to get an AI.
Have you noticed this phenomenon lately? And I'm asking the people in the chat too, where it seems like such an overwhelming preponderance of YouTube videos, voiceover videos now have AI voiceovers.
Oh, certainly. But
and a lot of them sound really, really convincing, like you would never know, but there is always one thing that gives it away.
Well, I got a question for you. Are you familiar with a gentleman known as Nikado Avocado?
Don't think so.
All right. So when we get to the 30-minute mark, I'm going to discuss that. Just remind me to do it, okay?
30 minutes, got it.
He may have pulled the greatest troll in YouTube history. And if so, I want to make sure I'm on point with this one because I almost called it like almost a year ago. I have no evidence of this, but it just something about the videos stuck out to my autistic ass. They were all too similar for an active set, if you catch what I mean. And I was like, all of these videos could have been filmed in 18 months. I said it out loud. Anyway,
and it's really amazing how convincing a lot of those AI voices sound, but there is always something that gives it away, that sticks out like a sore thumb, and then you think, oh, I'm listening to an AI voiceover, aren't I?
I tell you one thing that I really like using the AI voices for. It's really funny to me. If you go looking around in the music scene, you'll find a bunch of AI stations and whatnot that are playing like Hank Williams Jr. singing freaking gangster rap. And it is some of the most god-awful, heinous, hilarious stuff I've ever heard.
And yet it sounds eerily convincing.
It is unbelievably convincing, but it's not just Hank Williams. It's every old unknown superstar that ever existed that you've never heard of has been resurrected through AI to come sing about somebody's big black titties. And it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, and it's if we're at this point already, it is only a matter of time. It's only a few years now before a brand new movie comes out starring John Wayne and Marilyn Monroe, and you would never know the difference. And I've been predicting that for a while, and I think it's sooner than I even thought it was.
I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but oh, by the way, old guy Mitch said that was absolutely phenomenal. that whole thing you just did was solid magic. Let's do the chat right quick. We got, of course, Scotty Waddles getting the gold, right? Because
Scotty Waddles, hey now.
Scotty Waddles is everywhere, man. We got Kissy May in here. Good evening. We have American 101, Jeffrey Jordan, and Adam 87. Adam 87 has joined the chat. And you were saying something about something being racist. I give you Captain Curmudgeon. Joko. Welcome in, bud. Good to see you. We got Bootsy, my favorite Bootsy. Logical Spark, welcome in, bud. Old guy Mitch is in here, and he's the one who apparently couldn't smoke his weed because he's too funny, is what he be saying. So
did the background music come through okay?
It came through. I checked it while I was on my while I had my earbud in, and it sounded all right for the few seconds that I could stand here, and it tripled up like that because
I always just get locked in on the prompter, so I wasn't really keeping track.
It sounded great on this end. I hope it worked out. And
good.
If it didn't work out well in YouTube, it definitely did in your StreamYard copy.
Right on.
Right. Yeah, no, he says he's black and he loved it. So there's that, for whatever that's worth. We got Asvarone. So they're checking in from India over here.
Nice.
Right. I love it. Okay. So Jay said he's going to be a few minutes late, maybe as many as 30, 40 minutes late. We don't really know. I have a couple of little tiny videos that are basically news content from straight up news sources, but there has been a case of bird flu that is not outside of America. It's in like Michigan or Missouri or some shit like that. And homie just shows up at the hospital, go like a little cough and stuff. It's like, hey, I feel bad. And they're like, oh, good. And they put him on IV and he just got really, really, really sick. But they've been doing smears for this stuff for the past few months because it showed up in Mexico. Remember, I covered that a few weeks ago, right?
Is it the same bird flu or is it a new strain of bird flu?
It's the same H5 variant bird flu, which
gotcha.
By itself is odd.
Yeah, it kind of is. Because no, but don't those things normally mutate in the wild and take on new forms?
The thing is I can't get I haven't seen it written what variant of the H5 bird flu this is, but all I've gotten out of the general news I'm looking at is that it's an H5 variant, but it doesn't seem to have the 45% lethality rating that it usually has when it jumps to humans.
But if it was that much different, it seems like they would give it a different number or a different designation.
Well, H5 is a broad spectrum of different viruses that all do essentially the same thing when they jump from the avian species. There's like H5N1, H5N2, H5N3, and all of them are a little bit different and go about invading the lungs in different ways, but they all essentially do the same thing. And there's a little bit of cross immunity that takes place from having caught some. So chicken farmers are a little bit more likely to be immune to it. People who have parrots, weird as that sounds. If you keep
and just like the key to inventing the smallpox vaccine was the observation that milkmaids never get cowpox, and that it was following that evidentiary path that led to the smallpox vaccine.
Do you know what led to that evidentiary path? Almost 1,000 years of paintings and poetry about the beauty of milkmaids. When someone looked at a milkmaid and went, wait, they're right. Why don't they have scars that everyone else does? It was something.
Yeah. Why do milkmaids never get smallpox?
Right.
And it turned out to be because they all have immunity against cowpox from being around cows all the time, every day. And cowpox is close enough to smallpox that there's cross immunity. So there you go. Bob's your uncle.
Yep. And that's an absolutely amazing observation. That is exactly the way serendipitous science takes place. You know,
yeah, exactly.
Observe something in reality, you attempt something, and it works. Do you realize how nasty that experimentation process was?
I know. I admire the hell out of Dr. Edward Jenner. That's a fact.
Homie bought a handful of orphans, bro. He bought a handful of orphans,
Yep.
and the original plan was to infect the orphans. Some of the orphans with cowpox, some of the orphans with smallpox, and it turned out that some of the orphans had already had smallpox, so like they were completely out of the thing. And directly, he just went and freaking infected himself. He vaccinated himself, then infected himself, and then did other people. After he proved it out in front of everybody, was like, "Look, this works," you know.
And then one of the first groups of people in North America who had themselves inoculated against smallpox was John and Abigail Adams and their kids. And that was then the fact that they did it and it worked did much to popularize the inoculation on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, let's face it, it sounds when you first hear it, when you're thinking about it from the perspective of an 18th century. Go ahead.
Let me try to pitch this. All right. I'm going to try to sell this. Here's what I want to do, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take the sore pustules that form on the udders of cows. I'm going to grind that into a fine powder, and I'm going to come give it to your daughter. And
I'm going to cut you open and put that under your skin.
I'm going to cut you open and put it under your skin. And because of that, next time you come across one of these scar pockmark guys, you're not going to catch smallpox. But you're going to get like a little sore on your wrist, maybe your hand, maybe your palm, and it'll go away, but you'll never get smallpox again.
And to people who were completely unfamiliar with the germs theory of disease, which was still over 100 years off, that must have sounded a lot like magical thinking.
Right. It's stark raving batshit nuts is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just magical thinking. That is directly opposite to the cleanliness concept of that most places were starting to get into during that age. You know, sterilization. Yeah. Ooh, boil.
Oh yeah, Dr. Lister was still quite a few decades off at that point, but you know, there was those thoughts were starting to be thought.
Well, they were being percolated. I mean, not everybody was an absolute swine at that point, although it was overwhelmingly most people, to be honest. Seriously.
Yeah, from our perspective today, definitely.
Right. Now, I'm not sure which way to go from here. I think maybe what we should that was awesome, dude. That was absolutely amazing.
I got a question for you. I think there is a non-zero chance that they don't actually put Kamala on the debate stage on Tuesday. Not a big chance, but a non-zero chance that they try and come up with some excuse to not have her do it because they know she's going to ruin herself.
What's the over and under on Walz taking her place?
I bet odds do exist on that with the what do you call it, a sports book, a political sports book? I don't know what to call it. I'm not a gambler.
I'm not a gambler.
But yeah, I bet there are odds being laid on that.
So,
and that's the problem they have. When Joe Biden ruined himself on the debate stage, they still had the option of swapping him out for a different candidate. They no longer have that option. So you either have to stick her up there and let her ruin herself, or figure out an excuse to yank her off the stage.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure they ran Kamala Harris through?
No, I'm not sure. I am completely speculating.
Okay. All right. So legally speaking, I suppose it might be slightly more difficult to hammer Tim Walz into the presidential slot. But
would it be Tim Walz or would it be Hillary? I think it would be Hillary.
Would they go here? Oh my God.
I don't think she would let them not go Hillary. She's been circling up there like a vulture this whole time, waiting for the right moment to pounce. We have known this, and she's not gonna. She's not a politician or a there's no reason to think she knows anything about being president or anything. Being married to the president is not a political office. I know people like her and everything, but
I hear what you're saying. But I'm talking about for raw votable star power to come out and say, yes, we can, with Barack Obama standing right next to her, dude. That would be a hard bill to freaking tamper with. Yeah,
well, if you put it that way, if you if you present them as a sort of package deal, then yeah, I could see that being very attractive on the for the half of the population that apparently doesn't care about policy and just wants to have a celebrity contest.
Well, I mean, that's what it would essentially be at that point. Donald Trump is not your average politician, and Michelle is also not your average politician. That might,
and we have a lot of voters now. Let's face it, who don't view a presidential election much differently than they view fucking American Idol or America's Got Talent or
fucking wrestling. You're not wrong on that. That is so terrifying to me. When we talk about the wonderful world of low information voters, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Wow. The terrifying thing to consider is that she probably has a better chance of winning if she does 0 interviews, 0 press conferences, 0 debates, and stays as far away as possible from live microphones for the next 50 odd days until the election. And that is goddamn horrifying.
Conspiracy much? I got a tinfoil hat sitting right here off camera. Just
he does. He ain't lying.
I ain't lying. It's right here just to protect me from those thoughts, bro. Intrusive thoughts do not win tonight. No, I like Calvin. I've talked to him a few times. He at least stands on his principles, even if I don't understand how. Got to give him credit for that.
I can't believe I worked up that much of a lather just doing Black George Washington for 12 minutes or whatever it was.
Dude, it takes the stanky out your stank, man. It makes it hard to freaking do it. Like I said, I did an entire song as Alex Jones, and it was, of course, I did do it in one.
Yeah,
take.
Well, I mean, anything that requires you to grind your throat the entire time, which Alex Jones definitely does. Return of the fucking frogs, K.
Right. It's like gravel. That dude's just California is on fire.
Oh, we had a fun lithium ion battery fire the other day in my neighborhood. They actually had to evacuate people.
So apparently it's not just there. Line fires. Apparently y'all's electricity just randomly catches crap on fire.
Especially when you don't maintain them and you let all the forests get completely overgrown.
So, like, what do you do about that type of stuff? See, I don't know how y'all do it out there, right? But here in Georgia, we have these things called planned burns. They happen like every 18 months to 2 years or so. And
yes, that is what sane people do. Unfortunately, California has been run by Democrats for the last 30 years, so we don't do sane things. We just completely refuse to manage any of our forests and woodlands, and we say that we're doing the good thing for the environment, and then every time there's a stiff breeze, power lines get blown over and half the state burns down, and then they blame that on climate change too. So you can't lose, really.
Oh, I guess you're right. I hadn't really thought about that. See, I'm over here on the East Coast. If we had those kind of policies, this place would go up in an absolute tender flame about once a year or so. What's up, Independent? Like it grows, and we have something called kudzu. Okay. And about once a year, this stuff will burn off voluntarily. It wants to burn because when it burns off, it creates fertilizer for its roots. And not only that, the seeds get buried under the ash and you have bajillions of new kudzu plants. So this stuff's like gasoline right at the edge of fall. Tiniest sparks set this stuff off.
Yeah, and it's part of the circle of life. Nature likes to burn itself, to renew itself once in a while, and people have the responsibility to be reasonable stewards of the land and mitigate the risk of that against the risk of the life and limb and electrical supply of human beings. And it's not that difficult to do that if you're not a completely dyed-in-the-wool woke climate change ideologue who uses your religious worldview as an excuse to not do your job in terms of forest management and maintaining the integrity of the electrical supply in terms of making sure that we have well-maintained lines and poles and all that stuff. You know, all the stuff that we could figure out how to do 100 years ago, but we've forgotten how to do now, and that should really give people pause when they decide who they're going to vote for in the next election, I would submit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a monolith for nothing.
I mean, we have a hell of a lot of people living in places where people can't live if there is no forest management going on.
Facts. All right, so we got a presidential election that took place in Venezuela, and there seems to be some disagreement as to who actually won it. One of the guys is currently sitting in the presidential palace. The other one has run to Spain, and I don't blame him.
Do you remember the story last week about the apartment complex in suburban Denver that's been taken over by Venezuelan migrant gangs?
Yes, sir.
I was watching a TV report about that, which included an interview with a local business owner who said, yeah, the other day there was an election in Venezuela and we had to shut down for the day. So consider that. I mean, you know, drink that in good and hard, Mr. and Mrs. America, that
Hold on.
businesses in suburban Denver have to shut down because there's an election in goddamn Venezuela.
Huh. What? I think we do ours silver by law. Our propane tanks.
Yeah, they have to be white.
I think they're silver here. It might depend on what's in them, but they might be white. I haven't really looked. I haven't thought about it. I know. We used to have a silver one. I don't know if it was legal. I'm way off the grid, yo.
I'm surprised California hasn't changed that because it's racist.
Well, I mean, white people are a bit more burning.
Well, yeah. I guess you raise a good point. White means danger, so there you go.
Oh wow. Yeah, they finally knocked down one of the hotels in Louisiana that was damaged by Hurricane Katrina. What was that?
20 years ago? Yeah. 19 if we're being technical.
Right. But I mean, close enough to 20 to spit at it and hit it with the breeze.
Yeah, they don't waste any time, do they?
Right, they're all over this thing.
Yep. We'll get that fixed right up, folks.
Fixed right up by Tuesday.
They've probably paid to do it a dozen times over, but you know how these things go.
Right. I mean, eventually it can't help but go down, right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll just wait for it to fall down on its own.
New England town celebrates role as birthplace of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I kind of want to do a story on that now that I've read it.
Yeah, I think that warrants discussion right there.
I mean, what am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah, I'm in the car for that one, dude.
Mexico is offering escorted rides north from southern Mexico for migrants with U.S. asylum appointments. Yep. That's handy.
Because that's what you get when your southern neighbor is a failed narco state.
Apparently, I say, you know my philosophy on this, right? Have I told you? My philosophy on open borders. Well, you see, if you want to have open borders, I say we move our borders to the nearest closed border. We just start adding states, baby. We just need territory. That's all. I call it Manifest Destiny 2.
Let's make Oaxaca the 51st state, motherfuckers.
Right. We'll just move south a few miles. I mean,
I'm serious there, though. If I could take one Mexican state and make it an American state, it would be Oaxaca because I love Oaxacans. They are way more normal than your average Mexican.
I might even be able to make this extra cheap. We can just tell Texas they can have it if they can take it. They can have an extra county.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Right? Wow. That is truthfulness. That is sad too.
And we did. I know that I belabor this point a lot, but in 1916 we invaded Mexico, over 12 dead Americans. Nobody called it an overreaction because it wasn't an overreaction, because that's what you do to motherfuckers who flout the sovereignty of your borders.
Waffle House CEO Walt Elmer dies at the age of 58.
I saw that.
Moment of silence for this gentleman. He made my favorite hash browns.
Hopefully he doesn't have woke children who are going to wreck the company now.
I'm guaranteed. It's absolutely guaranteed.
Seems to happen quite a bit.
Right. So they just say this man was impaired, but he did crash into a restaurant. So I'm inclined to believe them.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't crashed into too many restaurants when I was sober, is all I'm saying.
Facts. I don't actually remember having crashed into any restaurants ever.
Also a fair point.
I've never even hit one of those fruit stands on the side of the road during a high-speed chase.
Oh, I got a news story I can talk about if you want to talk about it. Nikki Haley is back in the headlines. Good old Nikki Haley. Now, as we know, everybody who ran in the Republican primary this year is now either fully on board with supporting Trump or actually working for his campaign. Even a couple of the Democrats are working for his campaign now, if we want to talk about RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. But here's good old Nikki Haley going on CBS News this morning today, saying she still thinks Trump sucks. And, well, if I thought he was a good candidate, I wouldn't have been right. Who does that, Nikki? What kind of person are you? Because I think you're trying to show that you are exactly as loathsome as I kind of always thought you were.
That's wild.
I think what she's doing there is she is auditioning for a job on television and signaling that she is fully prepared if they need her to, if they're willing to pay her enough money to trash Trump for the next 4 years that he's in office. And
right.
What a fucking cunt. I don't use that word lightly. Nikki Haley is a fucking cunt.
All right, so what I want you to do is think this through and not hold back. Tell me what you really think, bro.
Yeah, I mean, wait, God. I mean, I don't. Okay. Here, I'm gonna break it down for you. I got a mathematical equation for you. Kamala Harris plus 20 IQ points equals Nikki Haley. I'm dropping the mic.
20? I'm not sure if that's too much or too little. I mean, you got to admit, Kamala Harris.
Discuss in the chat.
Right? Y'all hammered that one out for us because I'm not sure.
Tell me the correct number of IQ points I should add to get from Kamala Harris to Nikki Haley.
Right.
And it hurts more when you kick them when you're wearing heels. That was never a good line, Nikki. God, fuck. Sorry, I'm done with my Nikki Haley hate.
Can you do some Lauren Boebert hate?
What, did she get her tit groped in another theater?
I was hoping, but I don't think so. Hi. I apologize. I'm trying to find something here. I want to show you something here. Okay. You're not going to like it, okay? This is going to damage your psyche deep to the bottom of your soul.
How exciting.
I want you to blame me. Blame me. All right.
Oh, I already blame you.
So I asked at the beginning if you were familiar with Nikocado Avocado. Nikocado Avocado is a YouTuber who has been on YouTube since the dawn of YouTube. He was one of the very earliest lolcow figures that was trotted out in front of us as at first. I mean, he's done all sorts of content, but he became most famous doing mukbangs. And for the past 2 years, this man has been, hold on, let me see if I can, nope. Actually, let me do something right quick. I'm going to drop that down. I want to show you what he looked like yesterday, right? Because yesterday he was 300 pounds. And I'm not even joking. Yesterday, he was this guy.
I'm back.
Right. I'm going to mute him up. We're going to pop that open. We're going to add that to stage. You see this dude?
Yep.
All right. He's not a super chunk, but he is kind of chunkalicious, right? He's definitely thick, right? Now, he
And
does
very enthusiastic.
Yes, sir. And that's really been his shtick throughout of all of YouTube, is being overly enthusiastic about whatever type of content he's currently making. And while he was mukbanging, let's see how old this one is. So this was 5 years old, right? Now, for the past 2 years, he's been doing this general type of content. And over here, it's just going to show me the new ones. Anyway, he's been ginormous for a minute, right? So where we go from here?
What's it? How many subs does he have?
Like 5 million, 4.1.
Damn it!
Million. Yes, sir.
Seems like I should have heard of that dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know you're not like super deep into the whole YouTube lore thing, but
well, I mean, certain sectors of YouTube I'm deep into, but that ain't one of them, I guess.
Yesterday he uploaded a video, and if this is true, if this is the case, the greatest troll ever perpetrated in the history of man has just taken place right before your eyes, and you're fixing to see it.
2 steps ahead. I am always 2 steps ahead. This has been the greatest social experiment of my entire life. It's alluring, it's compelling, it's gripping to observe all these unwell, disoriented beings roam the internet in search of stories, ideas, rivalries, where they feel encouraged and engaged, where they involve themselves with the stories and become a product of influence. Thirsty for a distraction from time unspent, spoiling their minds, yet stimulating them at the same time. It's brilliant, and it's dangerous. I feel as if I'm monitoring ants on an ant farm. One follows another, follows another, follows another. It's mesmerizing. It's spellbinding. All these little consumers.
I agree 100%.
All of these lost and bored people. People consuming anything that they're told to consume.
Right.
So I am the
villain.
I compliment him for how well he synced up his visual performance with the audio track, because there's as a man who occasionally shoots videos with a mask on, you have to do the audio and the video separately. So
yeah,
that was a good synchronization act right there.
No. His editing skills are almost legendary. He's one of the very early complex editing channels that was on YouTube. He taught some of the well, I mean, they're not really around so much anymore, but they've gone onto other platforms. But he's one of the old fogies. And he said back in the early days, he would do these weird social experiments where he would put on I don't think this is a specific one, but like put on a weird outfit and just go stand in public and ask people if they wanted a water bottle. Right.
And how wonderful is it that there is such a thing as a YouTube old fogey now?
This gentleman, if this is not AI, and I'm going to play another few minutes of this just to let you see if, and a lot of people are saying this is AI, that this is BS, this is not true. But if you go back and look over the last 2 years of his videos, there is absolutely nothing in the background that can tell you when it was filmed. Nothing.
Oh, fair point.
Because I've beat myself one. And you will continue to consume these stories about me year after year after year. For as long as I tell the internet that I am the villain, stories that permeate and linger and infect the minds of the ants.
All right, y'all go check that out, because if he's not pulling the greatest troll I've ever seen in my YouTube career, my entire life, like I will be impressed. I want to see how this comes unglued. There are a lot of people saying that this is some kind of, as an actor in AI programming.
It must be fun to have that many subs where you can just fuck with people like that. just as a sociology experiment.
Well, okay, let's say you take a slightly, what's up, royalty? Welcome in, bud. Let's say you take a slightly overweight gentleman and you put a little bit of a fat costume on him. You could make a slightly overweight gentleman appear to be quite overweight with very little difficulty.
Sure.
I mean, just add a little fluff. And then you've got the fat body, skinny arm syndrome that people were talking about. And I don't know. I did comment about 6 months ago. My daughter watches a lot of his content. She loves to watch people eat and people do silly stuff. And so I pointed out that I've seen a lot of this dude's videos walking through the living room. And I was curious, why is it that he seems to randomly gain and lose 30 or 40 pounds, right? It just seems random. And she's like, well, I'm not watching them in order. And I'm like, okay, well, let's watch a couple in order. And we checked out the first one, then the next one, and the next one. And still seemed kind of random. He seemed to pick up or lose a few pounds here and there. And maybe that's normal, maybe that's not. But it made me think that there might be something hinky going on here.
Yeah, I think you're probably not wrong.
I don't know. It's
YouTube. Well, because the chronology in which a guy posts his videos doesn't necessarily have to be the same chronology in which they were shot.
That's true. That's so true. In fact, I have probably 3 series that I have done in videos because I thought they were a good idea. But then when it comes time to upload them, I'm like, oh, it's a little hard in the paint. Maybe it just doesn't feel right to upload it. And so I just stick it in a file over yonder. And when I come across another one, I stick it over there. And I told my wife, I was like, look, given the amount of content that go ahead.
No, you go ahead first.
Given the amount of content that I tend to put up in any event, if she were to go through and do the thing that YouTube wants me to do to monetize my channel and just upload the stuff I've already got in my computer, she'd probably have 3 years worth of content.
Now, you mentioned briefly food-oriented YouTube channels. There's only a couple of those that I follow, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this guy to you before or asked if you were familiar with him, but there's this guy. His name is Steve 1989 MRE Info, and all he does is just crack open ancient fucking field rations, sometimes from 100 years ago, and he'll just eat them and smoke the cigarettes and everything. And that's all he does. That's all his channel is. And there is something about it that's completely mesmerizing and provides, interesting historical value. And I can't get enough of it for some reason. Are you familiar with that guy? Have you seen him before?
No.
Yeah, there's the guy right there. I love this guy. Yeah. And this is all he does, and you can't stop watching it.
You know what sucks me in real fast? What's up, Difficult Denison? Welcome in, bud. The restoring channels where they restore some old archaic piece of equipment back to its former glory, a meat scale or an axe or something like that.
Yeah.
I consider it very niche tool porn, because there's not just the tool that's being restored, but also the tools used to restore it.
And and this channel, it's, as everybody knows, military history is my primary area of study, and I find stuff like that just invaluable in terms of understanding and gaining insight into military history, because who else does that? It's a very important part of military history that hardly ever gets discussed. You know, what were these guys eating while they were fighting this war? Because that can affect the outcome of a war if one army is eating better than the other army, and if food remains edible inside the package for 80 or 90 or 100 years, then major credit to the guys who put that together. Well
True.
done. Very well done indeed.
Have you had any recent MREs?
Yeah, when we were up at Queen Mary for our birthdays at the end of June, I did buy an MRE and eat it back in the room. It was I forget what the main dish was. Mostly I just wanted to see what was going on with your more recent MREs, and it was fine. I do enjoy the flameless ration heater. Those things are fun.
Oh, dude, I'm a dangerous man with a couple of them. I'll take out the tape. Dangerous man with a little bit of chemistry behind
it. Those things really heat the fuck up in a hurry too. They can.
Dude, you can use those things in an emergency to weld two pieces of plastic together if you do it right.
Yeah, and what an amazing feat of scientific innovation that you can just put a couple of ounces of water in a bag and have yourself a portable microwave, basically, or a portable welder, like you said.
So I had a buddy of mine who came out of the military a couple of years. This has been several years ago, and he was leaving the base over there, and they were cycling out their MREs, right? And so where usually it would cost like, I don't know, $60, $100 a case or whatever, these were approaching going out of date, and he was able to pick them up for like a few bucks on each one of them. And he got like 60 of them or so and stuffed them in the back of his Jeep. He comes by here and comes by the bar down the road over here and was going to pick up some chicks and didn't have any room because the back of his Jeep was stuffed full of MREs. So he come by here and dumped out all the boxes. And then later when he came to pick them up, he left one of the boxes behind. I ended up with 13 of the same dish, and it was like the vegetarian option and one spaghetti. And the spaghetti was a pretty good one. I ate it almost immediately.
Yeah, the one I had at Queen Mary, I'm remembering now. It was some kind of chicken and rice sort of a confection. And the other food channel I wanted to give a shout out to, I know I've mentioned this to you before, is Tasting History with Max Miller. That is a freaking outstanding channel from a guy who did. Go ahead.
The Townsend is not exactly a food channel, but it does a lot of food type content, and it's a really good one for like old school stick to your ribs type stuff.
Yeah. And Max Miller, talk about taking a unique idea and turning it into a YouTube career. He didn't have any training as a chef or a food anything. He just had the idea to make a YouTube channel where he would cook, old recipes from some certain period of history, and then use the cooking segments as a bookend for the video. And in the middle, he talks about all of the historical data and context that pertains to the thing he's cooking. And it's one of the best YouTube channels I've ever seen. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and there's a mountain of content over there too. I mean, it's all sorts of stuff. They cover things like building wells, different ages of colonial cabins, not just your classic colonials, but I mean, they do a whole bunch of a wide range of material.
He made authentic Roman garum. If you don't know what garum is, it's
that's rotten fish juice.
It's basically a fish juice sauce that the Romans used to put on everything. And the way you make it is you just cut up a bunch of fish pieces, like you take the whole fish and cut it into 3 pieces and put it in a vessel and put some water in it and stick it in the sun for a couple months.
And every now and then somebody goes out with a rag and sops up all the oils and stuff that comes up to the top, and that
Yep.
is sold as a different type of condiment. But the
Yeah.
garum is the closest thing we have on the shelves today is Oriental fish sauce. But the only
Yeah.
reason it's close is because it uses salt and fish. Everything else is different. The entire recipe was more along the lines of garlic and uh, like 19 different types of spices from the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and the Koreans still are in love with something that's very close called kimchi.
yeah, kimchi. That's the
They,
other
they,
one.
they put kimchi on freaking everything, man, and they still make it the same way they made it 3,000 years ago.
And the thing about garum is for anyone who encountered it, their first encounter of it was, and they utilized this rancid fish condiment that smells like dead fish. But then once
Yep.
they've eaten it, much like chitterlings, once
Yep.
they've they're sold on it immediately. The second you taste it, for some reason, I've never had the stuff. I'm allergic to soy, so anything with soy sauce is out. It's totally out. You know.
And Blue Unicorn brings up a good point because I believe that Worcestershire sauce is indeed fermented sardines, or originates from fermented sardines at any rate.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly. I watched a Worcestershire how it's made once. It wasn't
I
how
mean,
it's
how cool is humanity that we can take some of the most disgusting, revolting things and turn them into staple foods almost, or staple condiments, or staple garnishes, or whatever you want to call it.
You know what I'm thinking we're missing though? The
Hmm.
one resource I don't think we've exploited that we should be. There are these really ugly crabs in the North Atlantic that are huge, but they're ugly as hell and look like monsters from another space place. And because of that, we don't utilize them as a food source, but they're typically killed anytime they're found in a net with crabs that we do eat. They just kill them and throw them overboard. So if we could just get over the creepies on those crabs, we could eat bugs till the end of time because they throw away like sometimes those things would be a third of a harvest, you know?
I was actually reading just the other day about the history of lobstering
Oh,
and
lobstering is
about.
great.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. You want to do it or you want me to take a pitch at it?
No, go ahead. You go first.
All right. So lobster farmers have known since the dawn of time that if you take all of the big lobsters, you'll end up with nothing but little lobsters. And so when you get into the upper Chesapeake region up in that area, the local area by the locals were overfished to such an extent that all of the lobsters there weren't much bigger than most of your average like crawdaddies and stuff for a long period, because at one point in time lobster was used as pet food. It was put in dog food and cat food because it was a bonus protein. It was
Yeah, when Europeans first came to North America, many of them refused to eat lobster just because it was so abundant that they viewed it as peasant food and animal food.
Right. And so it was utilized to flavor all kinds of stuff by the cooks and chefs of the day. But it was kind of a on the sly kind of thing because nobody wanted to admit that they were cooking with lobster. It was so plentiful.
Yeah.
That is
And
exactly the circumstances that led to the fact that the size of the lobsters dropped in the Chesapeake region by 90%. 99% of the catch would be less than the year before, but they'd find more lobsters. So the people out in the actual ocean out there that had been lobstering were using a particular type of trap. These traps are easily escaped from by a lobster that's big enough to get out of the trap. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So any lobster that reaches a size big enough just to push the door open and get out strong enough doesn't get caught by this trap, and any lobster that's not does. And so it allows the fishermen to basically size the size of lobster they want to catch. And so every year they make their traps a touch bigger.
And it makes lobster into a sustainable resource.
Right. There's so many of them damn things out there crawling across the ocean. If you can figure out where one group is, you can make a mint.
Yeah, and the biggest inconvenience about lobster as a food is that you either have to cook them live or very, very shortly after they've been killed. And so
Right.
that created a problem where really up until the 1850s, 1860s, the only people who had the option of eating lobster were people very close to a coastline. And then eventually, as we do, we engineered a partial solution to the problem when naval engineers invented a vessel called the lobster skip that's got a well in the middle where you can bring up the lobsters from the traps and take them back when they're still alive, and that gives you a hell of a lot more leeway to get those things a certain distance inland and still have them be good enough to be edible. And that was a huge innovation in terms of lobstering. That changed everything.
Blue lobsters are unbelievably rare. They're beyond 1 in a million, perhaps 1 in a trillion, maybe fewer. There are also blue crayfish. That same genetic thing can happen in crayfish occasionally. I have seen a blue crayfish, but there are about 10 times more crayfish than there are lobsters in the world. So, there's that.
Yeah, I never saw one. The house I grew up in, we had a creek out in front that was full of crawdads. I used to fish them every day practically, and I never saw a blue one.
Yeah. I was thinking about creating an artificial animal and starting a YouTube channel and just uploading bad Photoshop images of it. And I was thinking about doing the North Georgia mountain squid. Right?
Is there a North Georgia mountain squid? Or are you making that up?
There certainly is, sir. You've never heard of Early Kyler? Don't touch the trim. There's a cartoon on was it Cartoon Network? I don't think it's Cartoon Network. Anyway, one of them's got a cartoon called Squidbillies, and it's all about a bunch of squids that live in the mountains and yada yada yada. But yeah, there might be such a thing as a mountain octopus. Lives in the streams of North Georgia.
And this goes out to Blue Unicorn. Speaking of things that are blue, the first time I ever heard the term Blue Oyster, even before I ever heard of Blue Oyster Cult, was the Blue Oyster Bar in the Police Academy movies.
Police Academy movies, yeah. Yeah. I still stand on my statement. If you've never gone to a gay bar with a bunch of gay guys, you haven't lived.
I'm trying to think if I've ever been. I don't think I've ever been to a gay bar.
I let Will dress me when we went. One of my good buddies growing up in high school and stuff, and he left high school. He was one of the biggest rednecks you ever saw. And then he comes back 2 years later, and he's married, got 2 kids. He looks at his wife one day and says, "Girl, I'm just leaving," and left. Comes back 2 years later, dumps a bunch of money on his baby mama, and he's now fabulous. Absolutely.
I'm just going to get a pack of cigarettes, honey. I'll be back in 2 years.
Well, no, I mean, he cashed absolutely every bit of value he had in his life out and gave it to his baby mama. It was like, "Girl, I'm leaving," and left. We got some dude's VW Beetle, and they ran off happily ever after until a couple of years later when he showed up. Like I said, dropped another big chunk of stack of bills on her and stayed left.
And we all know who America's baby daddy is. Black George Washington.
He was the guy who always told me never straight but gaily forward.
Words to live by.
I guess, I don't know, but it pops up any old time. Anytime somebody goes straight, I say never straight, gaily forward every single time, and I can't help it. It's like an autistic
Beautiful.
Gig. Right. All right, where are we going with this? We got MREs, we got do a little refresh over here on the AP. I was hoping Jay'd show up. That would have been cool, but
today was the opening day for the NFL, apparently, if you're still into pro football.
Do we do pro football? That was what he was doing all day, was pro football.
Yeah, I heard some Miami Dolphins wide receiver got arrested this morning before the game. That sounded like a fun story.
Yeah, no, somebody mentioned that in chat. Who was that? That was American 101, maybe? Can't remember. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, and then here's an update. He actually scored a touchdown in the game and did a handcuff touchdown dance. How about that?
Is that real?
That's real. I'm reading it right now. Dolphins superstar wide receiver Tyreek Hill hit an end zone celebration on Sunday afternoon that wouldn't have made a lot of sense unless you knew what happened to him Sunday morning. After beating 2 Jaguars defenders to the end zone for an 80-yard touchdown celebration, Tyreek Hill placed his hands behind his back and allowed fellow Dolphin receiver Jalen Waddle to cuff him for his football speeding violation. That is pretty badass.
Yeah,
Police briefly detained Hill about a block from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami for allegedly driving recklessly. Hill reportedly got into a verbal altercation with the officers and was handcuffed. Miami-Dade police said they would investigate the incident and several hours later announced that one of the officers involved has been placed on administrative leave. Wow, how about that? That escalated quickly.
Right? I mean, I don't even know.
Maybe your home team superstar right before the game? I don't know.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. Well, feel better, bud. I hope you get better, man. Remember, keep your head cool and your feet warm, and you should be fine. Hope so. Hope you don't got that bird flu.
Seriously. Or the swine flu. I had that thing.
Yeah, that wasn't no fun.
That one made me way the hell sicker than the China virus did, if we're keeping score.
What's up, Scully? Welcome to the show, bud. Appreciate you coming through. I can't say that. I first of all, I can't say I've had swine flu. I had a flu when swine flu was going around. Like they shut down the school out here for it. Because, you know, we're
swine flu was what, 15 years ago? Now it feels like about 15 years. That was the sickest I have ever been in my adult life, and it's not close.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got sick when everybody else was sick, but with me, it was just like, I'm done. Had a little fever, felt better.
Yeah, that's how the China virus was for me. I just felt happy for a few days, and that was it.
That shit almost killed me, bro. It almost killed me. If it hadn't been for my dogs and my dad, I'd probably not be here today because apparently I passed.
It kicked the shit out of Lady Curmudgeon too. It kicked the shit out of a lot of people I know. It's funny how those things work.
Yeah, it's weird. And you know, that's why I keep a kind of an eye on things like the bird flu and swine flu and what's being said and done. I'm more concerned with like certain types of I guess you'd call it commodities movements. You can watch things like masks, the little clear plexiglass helmets that they use for spit guards, stuff like that, the disposable ones. And if you see
like the wannabe welder shield things,
yeah, it kind of looks like a welder shield, but it's just clear. It's basically a spit guard. It's used in tier 2 and above viral containment. So if you see a bump in those types of things going up, that's a pretty good sign that somebody somewhere has gotten sick. And it doesn't necessarily say there's any kind of demic going on, but it is an indicator that there is something more significant than your average, seasonal flu going on.
Well, yeah, and it is prudent, as you mentioned, to keep track of such things, just in case.
Just in case, and have your little bug out bunker dug out in the hills of Arizona.
Oh, here, I got a story for you. You're going to love this one. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish what you were saying.
I was just clowning on Arizona for being nowhere.
Los Angeles Times columnist Steve Lopez has figured out who is to blame for California's problems, and it is Republicans. Nice. Lopez made the argument in a column that ran in the Times on Saturday. While recognizing that Democrats deserve to be on the hot seat, Lopez argues that Republicans are to blame because they are not providing a competitive alternative to Democrats and because some of the state's worst policies were enacted when Republicans governed. That's a bunch of horseshit, but I'll keep reading. Lopez writes, for example, that homelessness stems in part from Governor Ronald Reagan's decision to shut down mental institutions, which were then widely viewed as inhumane. And here comes a quote. Civil libertarians and others argued that people with mental illness were being neglected and abused in the state's mental hospitals. 3 California state legislators, 1 Republican and 2 Democrats, produced the Lanterman-Petrus Short Act signed by Republican Governor Ronald Reagan, which put limits on involuntary psychiatric treatment and led to the closing of hospitals. They're actually blaming Governor Ronald Reagan for California's homelessness crisis 20 years after Ronald Reagan died. That's a bold move. That's a bold move, bro. Let's see how it works out for him, Cotton.
Right. That's 20 years after he died, 30 years after he had anything to do with California elections.
He doesn't stop there. He goes on, quote, "It's more than a little bit hypocritical to bash crazy, reckless California on public safety when no amount of carnage in the nation, including mass shootings at shopping malls and schools, can loosen the gun lobby's death grip on GOP lawmakers, because obviously we have to blame the Second Amendment after we blame Governor Ronald Reagan, who hasn't been the governor in like 55 years. That's
seriously.
Good job, LA Times. Keep doing that high-quality journalism. We love you for it.
Well, I mean, Jesus, man. You can't talk to some people. There are some people that you can talk to your blue in the face. There's a couple of guys I've come across where you can talk sense into them within about 3 hours of just blatantly disposing of each one of their bullshit tenets, step by step, with statistics and facts. And the next morning, it's like they had a complete freaking brain rewrite in their sleep. They don't remember nothing.
Yeah, and you have to work through 20,000 feet of horse shit to get there.
My sound is going.
There's more. Yeah, I just had a weird sound glitch as well.
That was me. That was totally me, dude. That's the second time it's crashed in the past 20 minutes. I've never had it happen that quickly together.
We seem to be fine now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we got it.
And like I say, it's a bold move when your state has had lockstep one-party government for the last 30 years. But none of the current problems owe to the party that has been wielding that power for all those decades. That's the kind of accountability we're looking for, boys.
They're straight up winning because they're holding a pride march in Serbia.
Yes, and there is a George Floyd statue in downtown Kiev, and that is all that matters.
Yeah, apparently that is what matters. You know, one of the funniest things I remember from the past few years, and it did my heart good to see it happen, was when that George Floyd mural was struck by freaking lightning, bro.
Oh, I remember that.
I kind of feel like that's some kind of a troll, that somebody went extra special on some trolling just to have that happen, because it's not an impossible design to create a rocket that forces lightning to strike a particular spot, but making it actually work is a whole nother ballgame.
I feel like if there is a God and he has a really awesome sense of humor, he would do something like that.
Yeah. And here we are. We're a couple of years after the fall of the Georgia Guidestones. Do we have any answers on how that happened?
I was just wondering about that. Do we have any updates on that?
There's absolutely nothing anywhere, man. I've been patiently waiting quietly in the corner, searching every part of the deepest, darkest areas of YouTube, waiting patiently for somebody to say something. The last thing I heard, and I'm talking, hold on, let me do this right.
There it is.
So the
tinfoil hat, ladies and gentlemen.
The last thing that I heard was that it was a psyop done by the deep state with directed energy weapons. Homie told, it wasn't just one dude either. I had 3 people on panel at the time, and all 3 of them were absolutely positive that's the case. And so they were so positive, they talked me down after about 20 minutes, and I was finally like, whatever, man. I just don't know what to think about it anymore, I'll be honest with you. Because
it's the sort of thing that it seems like somebody would have taken credit for it by now, doesn't it? Because it was a pretty auspicious achievement when you get right down to it, because those things were built like a fucking brick shithouse. It took a lot of work and a lot of logistical effort to bring them down.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like you just tip them over. And
nah, not at all.
I kind of wonder, though. You know about the story of how they got put up?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not going to go into that at all. So,
Ted Turner.
The weirdness behind the actual construction of the Georgia Guidestones, kind of leads me to believe we might be looking at a direct long con. It may have been set up to take place when they set up the stones, because it was all very strange in the first place. You know?
It was indeed.
It kind of looks like a troll from the outset. And I don't know if anybody could possibly have lost that much of a bet. But how long were they up?
Well,
do we know?
I want to say they were put up around 1980. I'll look it up.
I'm working on it.
Maybe the late 70s.
In Elbert County. I went.
Yeah, 1980. I had it right the first time. Went up in 1980, came down in 2022. So 42 years they stayed up.
Okay, so June 1979, a man using the pseudonym of Robert C. Christian approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company on behalf of a small group of quote-unquote loyal Americans and commissioned the structure. Christian explained that the stones would function as a compass, calendar, and clock and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. The man reportedly used the pseudonym as a reference to the Christian religion. Christian said that he wanted to build a granite monument that would rival the British Neolithic monument Stonehenge, which he drew inspiration from after paying it a visit. However, he said that while it was impressive, Stonehenge had no message to communicate. Now, that's kind of weird and creepy. Who would build that and not take credit for it? Right?
Exactly. But the worldview that was being expressed on the inscriptions on those stones was exactly concordant with today's woke leftist globalist world.
Pretty close.
In terms of population control and eugenics. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's a prescription for mass murder, more or less. I mean, if you want the global population to be 500 million, you're going to have to murder a lot of motherfuckers.
That's true. That's true. That is so very true. Unless you can get them all to eat themselves to death by feeding them addictive freaking foodstuffs. I mean, that doesn't seem like too big of a stretch. Does it seem like a stretch to you?
Or you could force them to eat bugs and dirt and starve them that way.
I just don't.
Which they're working on.
Bro, I've eaten freaking crawdads and shrimp. I'm not going to shrug too many freaking roaches off if it comes down to it, bro. If you ask me whether I'm eating my dog or my neighbor, let me tell you right now, my dog can help me find more neighbors.
Depends on how much meat's on the neighbor.
You can find another one, bro. I got a dog. we can find another. What's up, man?
That conversation took a turn.
Bold of you to assume I don't eat people.
I know, how presumptuous of me.
What's up, Can Squatch? I ain't seen you in a minute.
Hello, Can Squatch. How we doing?
That is super cool, bro.
Nice of you to show up right at the end.
I think he was my third interview that I did with
Sasquatch.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, bro. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, we're all old timers now. Not like the panda head guy, but pretty close.
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody's an old timer like him. There's very few. You've got folks like Ethan Ralph and freaking Mr. Beast and stuff. Those are the people that compete on the level of the Nikado Avocado.
I mean, we're on our 1 year anniversary, and I'm on my 4 year anniversary because this was the same week I put up my first video.
I think I just did my 4 year anniversary too. Maybe 5 year, 4 year. I think it's 4. Might be 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I started up right after the election. Come to think of it.
Yeah, it was. I was thinking I would start making videos right before the election, and still never occurred to me that Joe Biden was going to win.
What's up, Dennis?
If indeed he did.
Good to see you.
We're allowed to say that now, aren't we? Didn't YouTube adjust the community guidelines where we don't have to pretend that Joe Biden won the most secure election in history?
I assume so. I used a thumbnail the other day for a live stream that said that had a Sasquatch with a T-shirt on that said, "I'm more believable than 81 million votes."
Oh, I saw that and I chuckled and I admired that. That was a good one. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bold position to take when you shotgun blast hundreds of millions of mail ballots out to every registered voter, living and dead, and then you turn around and call it the most secure election in history. I mean, gigantic grapefruit-sized balls it takes to do that.
I have a very angry wife squatch. You remember I told you I spend a lot of my time being Uber squatch for the kids? Because one of my daughters ordered her car and they're all now stranded because that one daughter doesn't have a car. Anyway, so apparently now she's being Uber wife squatch.
Go easy on him, wife squatch.
Well, I mean, I usually do it 99% of the time. If they call, I do it. If I'm live, I don't. That's about the only time I don't do it. So
there you go. Give the man his life space.
So we got about 5 minutes. Is there anything else we need to cover on the old home front over here?
Let me make a quick rundown of the news headlines again and see if there's anything that jumps out at me.
We got the debate. We got there's nothing else jumping.
Oh, here we go. We've got a California Democrat who has flipped to Republican. The former California State Senator Gloria Romero has announced that she is ditching the Democrat Party, noting that it is not the Democrat Party that she had once championed. She announced on Wednesday that she was joining the growing number of people who were leaving the Democrat Party and that she had changed her voter registration to the Republicans, which I wouldn't do that personally. I would just be an unaffiliated voter like I am now, but, that's your business, to each her own. Here's her quote. "I am now another near lifelong Democrat who is joining the growing number of people, including key groups like Latinos, who are leaving the Democrat Party. This is not the Democrat Party that I once championed. I do not recognize it anymore, and I cannot continue. I changed my voting registration today as the sun was rising to Republican, which has, under Donald Trump, become the champion of working people." Pretty powerful statement, really.
It is fairly good. That's nicely done. I still stand by my statement that Donald Trump won on a Republican ticket by running on mid-90s liberal values.
You're exactly right. The only thing that has changed is the position of the Overton window.
Right. It's not...
And any time before 5 minutes ago, Donald Trump would have been a thoroughly middle-of-the-road centrist Republican, even slightly left of center. And a lot of people forget about that. I mean, there has never been anything right-wing about Donald Trump.
He's absolutely a New York Democrat, and it's weird that he's now excised as the severe right-wing candidate, and it blows my mind.
He was a registered member of the Democrat Party up until 2009, I believe, 15 years ago.
How does that even work?
Yeah, it's a real mind effort.
But I mean, when you look at the rest of the world, like take Europe, man, they've swung so far left that our left-wing politics looks right-wing to them.
Yeah, and anybody who makes any sort of critique about that vast shift to the left, they get called Hitler adjacent and a Nazi sympathizer and a dangerous right-wing extremist. That's how far left the Overton window is now.
They get issued one of these.
Exactly. They do indeed. Happens. Yep.
I got mine in the mail. What's up, Izzy? Welcome in, girl.
Hello, Izzy. Hello, Dennis Bigfoot.
What say Lou?
What say Lou?
How everybody kind of show up right before we leave, right?
Yep. And he makes a valid point.
Yep. It's because they don't love me. If they were really going to let me be their YouTube representative, they would all love me.
Is it time for me to talk us out?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure I got Joker because I missed him earlier. Blue Unicorn is Mountain Fresh. Got North Alabama Cryptid, Mr. and Mrs. Knack.
Look at all these people showing up right at the end.
We got Royalty up in the chat. Ran into him the other day on a totally different thing. Scotty Waddles is in here. We got Snark and Sass, Difficult Denizen, Old Guy Mitch. We got everybody. We got all the cool people. The only person missing is Peak and Ben.
Thank you to Scotty Waddles for being a channel legend, for being here every single time. Can't overstate how much we appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, bud. Do the thing that you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius. I sure hope you enjoyed that guest appearance by Black George Washington, where I almost blew my throat out after. I'm glad I kept that to 12 minutes, actually, because I don't think I could have done 15. Frankly, I would be here talking like Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead right now. At any rate, feel free to join me for my live stream for the debate on Tuesday, or join Squatch for his live stream. We're going to have dueling live streams. How about that? Hopefully we don't become bitter rivals. We will see you next time. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?